Good morning, Zio here, and today we're going to go revisit an old friend known as Marathon. That's right, Marathon. Absolutely, time to get all those haters, or I'm sorry, haters. Time to get all those people who hate it when you talk negatively about Marathon in my comments. Tell me how it's a niche title and how they know what they're doing and it's not dead and everything. Anyway, so this marathon and the search for the floor. So grab yourself some coffee, sit back, relax, and let's get into it, shall we? Also, if you hear dogs barking in the background, my bad. I was trying to wait until they stopped barking. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case as they continue to bark. Anyway, so as you can see on screen, this morning, which was yesterday, I guess, technically. Oh my gosh, puppies, can we not? Anyway, so I'm just going to assume I haven't said anything yet. As you can see on the screen, in front of us, jeez, wow, words so hard. You've got Marathon. They started strong with 88.337, which is not enough to recoup the costs that went into Marathon. But, it is what it is. And they're currently sitting at a 15,243 for the 24-hour peak, which is really, really bad. And as for there only being about 5,000 people on, I get that. At least on the East Coast, right? Because if we're talking about what's going on, if most players are in North America, it's like 7:30 in the morning right now. So it makes sense that nobody's really online for the most part right now. So ignore that number. The number that's relevant is the 24-hour peak one. So the question that a lot of the defenders for Marathon like to pose or say, I'm sorry, it's not really a question. It's more like they say it as a gotcha type deal. But it's like, what does the numbers have to do with anything? That doesn't mean anything. The other games have worked, me. And it's because of things like this here, right? And we're still barking. Anyway, so Sony has completed its $3.7 billion deal to acquire Bungie and welcome them into the PlayStation family because they wanted that sweet, sweet Destiny money, right? And let me tell you, Destiny was a great game until they screwed that all up too. Yeah, they acquired Bungie for $3.7 billion. That's why it matters. You can't get that back on 88,000 players. And I get it. There's console numbers too, but the reason why this one particular is so relevant is because it turns out that is the majority of the players. But anyway, so on top of that, it's reported that Bungie and Marathon reportedly cost $250 million just to make Marathon alone. Just to recoup that number, I think the estimate was somewhere about 7 million copies had to be sold or something ridiculous like that. I don't quite remember what the number is, but they only sold like reportedly 1.2 million copies because after they finally sold that in about 3 weeks or so, because it took them like what, most of the month to even get to that number. Yeah, anyway, so that's about how much they have sold in general. Sorry, most of the month. Let's backtrack for a second. I think they did that within the first couple of weeks. Yeah. Anyway, so that's where they made the majority of their sales. I still don't know what is up from down this morning, apparently. But yeah, so that is why that number matters. And I get it, you want this game to succeed, and that's fine. It looks like a great game. Looks like it's a lot of fun. And again, I will say, once it goes free to play, I will pick it up. I will play it. I will say, why do you people think this game is so freaking hard when it's not? And then move on with my life, because that's generally how this thing goes at this point. But yeah, so apparently the 1.2 million copies sold, nearly 70% of those were on Steam. That's according to the analysts, right? The estimation hasn't exactly made the splash Bungie wanted. That's again why it matters what the Steam numbers do. Not to mention that the Steam numbers itself usually is a reflection of how it's going across all consoles. If it's not doing well on Steam, it probably didn't do well on PlayStation and Xbox to begin with. If it did fantastic on Steam, you bet it probably did amazing on the other consoles. It has been this tried and true point on a graph thing that you can look at for years at this point, and I get it. There are exceptions. There's always exceptions, right? This is not one of them, okay? But on top of that, Sony has apparently, even some journalists out there can no longer ignore the fact that Marathon is racing for the floor, and I don't know what the future of Bungie is going to be. But Sony's lack of marketing push on Marathon speaks to a lack of faith from the platform holder, says former Square Enix exec. And yeah, that's a thing that should be noticed. If you're playing Marathon, you know, Godspeed, I guess, because I feel like they're going to hold on to it as long as they can, just because Bungie is Bungie, right? Like I've been saying that since the start. It will do decent, but it's going to not what is it, something about sales, it's not going to exceed sales expectations or something like that. Like it's not going to make it to the point that they wanted. I can't remember what the actual speech is that they use for that, but it's going to fail, right? They're going to say it in some marketing call at some point in the near future. When they have that, they're going to have to admit that it did not perform as well as they wanted it to, and then they're going to hold on to it because it's a Bungie name, and they spent a lot of money on Bungie, and that's the only reason I think Marathon is going to avoid being a Concord, because when it was Concord was an unnamed studio. Well, it wasn't unnamed, but unknown studio at the time, right? So nobody knew who Concord was. Nobody knew who made Concord for the most part. So the fact that they just slammed it, cut their losses, and was done with it, it wasn't that big of a deal, although we did laugh collectively. But when it comes to Bungie, we're talking about the fathers of Halo here. We're talking about the fathers of Destiny. And shutting down that studio, that is one of those, oh my gosh, I can't believe that studio got shuttered kind of moments. Like, that is a gaming historic moment, is when Bungie gets shut down. That's the kind of studio it is, right? Even though it's nowhere near as good as it used to be. But hey, that's where I think that's where I am on the Marathon thing. You let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I will talk to you later. See ya.